The quiet street of Plasto Heights, New Hampshire, held a secret, a simmering tension, ready to boil over. It all began with a simple act, an everyday task, that spiraled into a shocking confrontation and exposed a darkness lurking beneath the surface of suburban life. Karoline Leavitt, a young mother and, surprisingly, the White House press secretary, just wanted a peaceful day off. But fate, and a nosy neighbor, had other plans. Karoline Leavitt wasn't the type to crave unnecessary attention. She worked remotely, kept her yard tidy, and only chatted with neighbors when needed. Most people left her alone, and that's just how she liked it. Until a simple decision put her in everyone's crosshairs. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow I've got a special story just for you. It all started when Karoline, the 27-year-old White House press secretary, sat in her living room, enjoying a rare day off with her husband and newborn son. She'd been in the Trump administration for only 2 months, and these moments of peace were precious. But work doesn't wait. During a Zoom call with the Trump team, her screen kept glitching, her voice cutting in and out. "What's wrong with the Wi-Fi now?" she muttered, frowning. With experience from the White House, where cybersecurity is a matter of life and death, Karoline didn't brush it off. She opened the router app on her phone, scrolling through the list of connected devices. Everything seemed normal, phone, laptop, TV, until she paused at an unfamiliar name. Plasto, I-01. Her heart beat faster. She lived alone with her family. No one should be on her network, especially not something with that name. "Someone's hacking in," she told herself, recalling security briefings from the Trump campaign. Without hesitation, she stood up and stepped out to the front yard to change the Wi-Fi password. The signal was stronger outside. Karoline stood in the yard, faint sunlight hitting her face as she typed the new Wi-Fi password into her phone. She didn't know that from the neighbor's window, Ellie Whitaker was watching her every move. Ellie, 45, was a familiar face in Plasto Heights. A liberal activist, local blogger, and self-proclaimed guardian of justice for the neighborhood. With silver-dyed hair and round glasses, she often posted long rants on X, formerly Twitter, criticizing Trump and the MAGA crowd. To Ellie, Karoline wasn't just a neighbor. She was a symbol of everything she despised. A young, conservative woman, loyal to Donald Trump. Ellie sipped her coffee, eyes narrowing, as she saw Karoline standing still, fingers flying across her screen. "What's she up to?" she mumbled, setting her mug on the kitchen table. In Ellie's mind, Karoline wasn't a new mom troubleshooting her home network. She was a MAGA operative, plotting something sinister. She'd read dozens of online articles about government surveillance, about how conservatives use tech to spy on citizens. To her, Karoline, as White House press secretary, couldn't possibly be innocent, standing in the yard, messing with her phone like that. "She's definitely hacking something," Ellie told herself, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. She remembered meeting Karoline 5 years ago. Karoline had hung a MAGA flag in her front yard, an act Ellie saw as provocation. She'd written a long letter to the Leavitt mailbox, demanding the flag come down because it offended the neighborhood's free spirit. Karoline never replied, just smiled over the fence when they crossed paths. That smile, to Ellie, was arrogance. And now, seeing Karoline out there, Ellie felt a surge of adrenaline. "I can't let her get away with this," she whispered, hurrying to the landline. Ellie dialed 911, her hand trembling slightly as the line rang. "Hello, I need to report an emergency," she said, her voice urgent. On the other end, a dispatcher responded calmly, "Yes, ma'am. Can you give me details?" Ellie glanced out the window, seeing Karoline still standing there, head down over her phone. "My neighbor, Karoline Leavitt. She's doing something really suspicious in her yard. I saw her messing with her phone, typing nonstop. I think she's hacking or spying on someone. She's one of Trump's people, works at the White House. She's definitely up to something shady." The dispatcher asked, voice steady, "Did you see her do anything specific? Any strange devices or unusual behavior? Ellie hesitated. She didn't actually have proof, beyond a gut feeling that something was off. But she couldn't admit that. I don't know exactly, but she's been out there for 10 minutes. With someone like her, who knows? I just want the police to check, please, she insisted, her voice rising. The dispatcher sighed lightly, logging the info. All right, we'll send someone out. What's your address? Ellie rattled off her address quickly, eyes still glued to Karoline. When she hung up, she felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. I did the right thing, she told herself, stepping onto her porch to watch. She crossed her arms, standing there like a gatekeeper, waiting. Meanwhile, Karoline, oblivious to the drama unfolding, had just finished her check of the router's device list on her phone. Plasto I-01 was gone. She breathed a sigh of relief, but the unease lingered. The sound of distant police sirens made her look up, frowning. A black and white patrol car rolled slowly down the narrow street in front of her house, stopping at her driveway. "What's this about?" she muttered, still gripping her phone. Two officers stepped out. The first, Detective Navarro, was tall with a stern face, wearing a black jacket with a badge glinting faintly in the sun. The second, Officer Carter, was shorter, hair tied back, eyes sharp but slightly warm. Navarro raised a hand, his voice deep. "Hi, ma'am. I'm Detective Navarro. We got a call about suspicious activity at this address. Are you Karoline Leavitt?" Karoline nodded, her gaze wary. "Yes, but suspicious how?" "I'm just standing in my yard." She crossed her arms, keeping her tone calm but not hiding her irritation. Before Navarro could answer, a shrill voice cut through from across the street. "That's her, I told you! She's up to something shady." Ellie Whitaker stepped out from her porch, hands on hips, eyes triumphant. Karoline turned, instantly recognizing her nosy neighbor. "Ellie?" she said, her voice tinged with surprise and annoyance. "You called the cops on me?" Ellie marched closer, unflinching. "Yes, I did. You've been out here for 10 minutes messing with your phone like a thief. I know what you do at the White House. You and Trump's MAGA crew are always up to something." Navarro held up a hand, voice even. "Calm down, Miss Whitaker. We need to hear both sides." He turned to Karoline. "What were you doing out here?" Karoline took a breath, maintaining the composure she'd honed facing the press in Washington. "I was changing my Wi-Fi password. My network was acting up, and I saw a strange device connected. I was just protecting my home." Ellie let out a scornful laugh. "Changing the Wi-Fi password? Who'd believe that? With someone like you, it's gotta be hacking or spying on us. You're Trump's lackey. I've read all about it. Your kind are good at this stuff." Karoline tilted her head, her gaze icy. "Got any proof, Ellie, or just some conspiracy theories you picked up online? I'm standing in my yard, and you call 911 over... what? Jealousy?" Ellie flushed, her voice pitching higher. "Jealousy of you? Don't be so full of yourself. I'm protecting this neighborhood from people like you, ones who think they're above the law just because they work for Trump." Navarro exchanged a quick look with Carter, clearly not wanting this to turn into a street shouting match. Carter stepped forward, her tone softer. "Miss Leavitt, you mentioned a strange device on your network. Can we see it?" Karoline nodded, though she wasn't thrilled. "Sure, but I don't get why I'm explaining myself when the one calling the cops has nothing but baseless accusations." She opened the router app on her phone and handed it to Carter. Ellie butted in, pointing at Karoline. "See? She's too tech-savvy. There's no way she's just changing a password." Carter glanced at the screen, then passed it to Navarro. He scanned the device list, frowning at Plasto I-01, now disconnected. "What's this device?" he asked. Karoline replied, "I don't know. It's not mine. That's why I changed the password. I thought someone was hacking my network." Ellie smirked. "Oh, how convenient. Playing the victim now?" Karoline turned to Ellie, her voice frigid. "Want the truth or just here to yell nonsense? If I were hacking someone, you think I'd be dumb enough to do it in my front yard?" Ellie opened her mouth to snap back, but Navarro cut her off with a raised hand. "Enough, Miss Leavitt. We need to dig deeper to sort this out. Mind if we check your router? Karoline clenched her jaw, a wave of indignation rising. She'd done nothing wrong, yet she was being treated like a suspect in her own yard. "Fine," she said, her tone firm. "But I hope you'll ask her what evidence she's got, instead of buying her paranoid ramblings." She shot Ellie a challenging look. Ellie crossed her arms smugly, replying, "Go ahead and check. I know I'm right. She's not innocent." Navarro nodded to Carter, signaling to head into Karoline's house. "We'll look at the router and wrap this up," he said, his tone resolute. Carter glanced at Karoline, her eyes briefly sympathetic. "Just stay calm. We're only doing our job," she whispered. Karoline nodded, but inside, her anger simmered. She never imagined something as simple as changing her Wi-Fi password would spiral into this mess, all because of Ellie. Karoline. Leavitt led Detective Navarro and Officer Carter into her house, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood as she opened the living room door. Ellie Whitaker trailed behind, her eyes still suspicious, though her triumphant tone had softened slightly. Inside, the peaceful air of the small home was shattered by the brewing tension. Karoline's husband, a tall man with dark brown hair, stepped out from the kitchen holding a bottle of milk for their newborn son. "Karoline, what's going on?" he asked, his gaze sweeping over the two officers and Ellie. "The cops are here because Miss Whitaker thinks I'm hacking someone," Karoline replied, her voice laced with sarcasm. She pointed at Ellie, who stood near the door with her arms crossed. "I was just changing the Wi-Fi password." Her husband frowned, but said nothing more, just nodded and stepped back inside. Navarro spoke up, cutting in. "Miss Leavitt, where's your router? We need to check it to clear this up." Karoline nodded, leading them to a corner of the room where the router sat on a bookshelf. She plugged a cable into a laptop on the dining table. Opening the network management app, Ellie hovered nearby, eyes locked on the screen, ready to pounce on any slip-up. "Go ahead and look," Karoline said, her voice steely. "I've got nothing to hide." Carter sat beside her, while Navarro stood watching, arms crossed. Karoline scrolled through the device list. "Here," she pointed at Plasto, ISO 1, in the connection history. "It disconnected when I changed the password, but it was there for a week before that. I don't know what it is." Navarro frowned, asking, "Do you have security cameras? If someone's on your network, they could access those too." Karoline nodded, opening the camera app on her laptop. "I've got a few around the house. Living room, backyard, baby's room." She clicked into the access history, and the screen displayed a list of connection times. But then, she froze, her breath catching. "Wait," she whispered, pointing at a line of data. "This isn't my IP. Someone's been watching footage from my cameras." Carter leaned in, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, they got in?" Karoline typed quickly, pulling up detailed logs. A window popped up, footage of her living room from that morning when she was playing with her son. But the angle wasn't from her app. It had been accessed from another source. "This is my camera," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I didn't share viewing rights with anyone." Ellie jumped in, her tone mocking. "What, you hacked yourself to frame someone else?" Karoline whipped around, her gaze piercing. "Can you shut up? This is my home, my son's being watched, and you're still standing there accusing me?" Ellie opened her mouth to retort, but Navarro raised a hand to stop her. "Miss Whitaker, let us work. Miss Leavitt, can you check if any other cameras were breached?" Karoline nodded, her mouse moving swiftly through the log files. She widened the search, and then her eyes widened. "It's not just my house," she said, her voice dropping. "Multiple IPs in the neighborhood were accessed from the same source as Plasto ISO 1." She clicked on another IP, and the screen showed footage from a different house. A living room, with a blue couch and patterned curtains. Ellie suddenly went quiet, her face paling. "Wait," Ellie whispered, stepping closer to the screen. That's my house." Karoline turned to her, voice icy. "Yes, Ellie. Someone's been watching your cameras, and it's not me." The footage kept rolling. Ellie standing in her kitchen that morning, coffee mug in hand, completely unaware she was being watched. She stepped back, hands trembling. "No, it can't be," she stammered. Navarro leaned in, his tone grave. Miss Leavitt, can you trace the source? If this is a surveillance network, we need to know where the data is going. Karoline nodded, opening an analysis tool she'd used back at the White House. She entered the IP address, tracking the data flow. The screen displayed a series of numbers, then locked onto a specific location. It's transmitting to a house in this neighborhood, she said, eyes fixed on the screen. Just a few houses down. Ellie shook her head, voice panicked. No, that's not right. Who would do that? You must have set me up. Karoline let out a dry laugh, turning to her. Set you up? You're the one who called the cops on me, Ellie. I just wanted to change my Wi-Fi password to protect my family, but now what? Someone's watching the whole neighborhood, including you. Carter cut in, voice calm. Miss Leavitt, can you pinpoint the exact house? Karoline typed a few more commands, then paused. She looked up, her gaze darkening. There it is. This address. She turned to Ellie, her voice lowering. It's coming from your house, Ellie. Ellie blinked, stepping back. What, my house? You're crazy. Navarro straightened, hand resting near his belt. Miss Whitaker, does anyone else in your home use the network? Kids? Relatives? Ellie shook her head fiercely. No, just me and Ethan, my son, but he couldn't. He's just a college kid. Karoline tilted her head, her eyes sharp. Ethan, he's tech-savvy, right? I've seen him glued to his laptop all the time. Ellie flushed, her voice shaky. Don't you dare throw accusations around. Ethan didn't do anything wrong. But Navarro didn't let her go on. We need to check, he said, his tone firm. If the source is your house, we're going in to look. Ellie clutched her face, muttering, It can't be. It can't be. Carter glanced at Karoline, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. You okay? She asked quietly. Karoline nodded, but her hand gripped the table's edge tightly. I'm fine, but I want to know who dared to do this to my family. Navarro turned to Ellie. Miss Whitaker, take us to your house, right now. Ellie hesitated, her eyes darting as if searching for an escape, but she knew she couldn't run from the truth. Karoline stood, her cold gaze fixed on Ellie. You want to find the stalker? Let's go, but don't be shocked if it's right under your nose. Ellie trembled, stepping out of Karoline's house, followed by Navarro and Carter. Karoline Leavitt stood in her living room, eyes locked on the laptop, still displaying footage from Ellie Whitaker's house. Detective Navarro, Officer Carter, and Ellie had just left, their footsteps echoing down the quiet Plasto Heights street. Ellie led the way, shoulders slumped, her face pale as if her soul had drained out. But Karoline didn't follow immediately. She needed to be sure. If it's coming from her house, she muttered, I have to know exactly what's going on. She sat at the dining table, fingers flying over the keyboard. Footage from her cameras, living room, backyard, and, most chillingly, her son's room, remained in the intruder's access logs. She broadened the analysis, checking other breached IPs. A long list appeared. The Jenkins house down the street, the Millers next to the park, and Ellie's too. This isn't small time, she told herself, heart pounding. Her husband, Ryan, walked in, cradling their yawning 8-month-old son. Karoline, what's happening? Where'd the cops go? He asked, voice laced with worry. Karoline looked up, her expression grim. They're at Ellie's. Someone hacked the neighborhood's network, Ryan. They've been watching our cameras, even the baby's room. Ryan froze, clutching their son tighter. What? Who did it? He jabbed a finger toward Ellie's house through the window. Her? No, Karoline replied, voice low. But the source is her house. I'm figuring it out. Ryan sat their son in the high chair, stepping to her side. Have you told the Trump team? This isn't normal. You're the press secretary. Karoline nodded, grabbing her phone. I'm calling Mike first, she said, dialing Mike Dawson, her old cybersecurity advisor from the Trump campaign. The phone rang twice before Mike picked up. Karoline? What's up, calling this late? His voice came through, tinged with sleep. Mike, my home network's been breached. Someone's watching our security cameras, not just mine, the whole neighborhood. I traced a source nearby, but I need you to confirm, she said quickly. Mike went silent for a second, then his tone sharpened. Send me the access logs. If it's real, it could be a man-in-the-middle attack. Someone set up a fake network to lure people in. Karoline emailed the data, then turned back to the laptop. She opened a deeper analysis tool, tracing the data flow from Plasto I01. The screen flickered, then pinpointed a location, 124 Maple Lane, Ellie's house. "It's definitely from there," she said, voice frigid. Ryan peered over her shoulder, frowning. "Ellie, or someone in her house." Karoline's lip twitched. "She's got a son, Ethan, always on his laptop. I bet it's him." Mike called back, voice urgent. "Karoline, I checked the logs. This is a surveillance network. They're not just watching, they're recording. The data is going to 124 Maple Lane, like you said. Be careful. This could be bigger than you think." Karoline nodded, though Mike couldn't see. "Thanks, Mike. I'll handle it." She hung up, standing. "Ryan, stay with the baby. I'm going over there." Ryan grabbed her hand, worried. "You sure? Let the cops handle it." Karoline shook her head. "No. I got dragged into this. I need to see it for myself." She picked up the laptop and headed out, ignoring Ryan's attempt to stop her. March wind whipped through her blonde hair as she crossed the street to Ellie's house. Inside Ellie's home, the air was thick. Navarro stood in the living room, his sharp eyes scanning the space. Carter sat by the table, checking Ellie's router. Ellie hovered near the door, hands over her face, muttering, "It can't be. Ethan wouldn't do that." Navarro turned to her. "Miss Whitaker, call your son down, now." Ellie hesitated, then shouted, "Ethan, get down here!" Slow footsteps sounded from the stairs. Ethan Whitaker, 22, appeared. Tall and lanky, hair messy, eyes avoiding contact. He wore a black hoodie, hands in his pockets. "What's up, Mom?" he asked, voice casual but eyes darting. Navarro stepped forward. "Ethan, we have reason to believe someone in this house hacked the neighborhood's network, accessing security cameras. Know anything about it?" Ethan shrugged, tone indifferent. "I don't know anything. You've got the wrong guy." But Ellie trembled, turning to him. "Ethan, tell me the truth. They say it's coming from our house." Ethan glanced at his mom, then looked away. "Don't believe them, Mom. Leavitt probably made it up to frame us." Right then, Karoline pushed the door open, laptop still in her arms. "Made it up?" she said, voice cold. "I've got proof, Ethan. Data from Plasto I01 leads straight here. How do you explain that?" Ethan looked at her, eyes narrowing, but said nothing. Ellie cut in, voice frantic. "You shut up! You can't accuse my son!" Karoline set the laptop on the table, opening the screen for all to see. "Here," she pointed at the logs. "My cameras, yours, the neighbors, all accessed from this address. My cybersecurity advisor confirmed it. Still want to deny it?" Ellie and Navarro leaned in, studying the data. "Is she right, Ethan? This is your house." Ethan stepped back, hands clenching. I don't know anything about that," he stammered. But Carter stood, voice firm. "We need to check your laptop. If you're innocent, there'll be nothing, right?" Ethan looked at his mom, then Navarro, panic in his eyes. Ellie clutched her face, muttering, "No, it can't be." Karoline stepped forward, her gaze locked on Ethan. "You're tech-savvy, Ethan. I've seen you outside with that laptop all day. This is your doing, isn't it?" Ethan turned away, silent. Navarro ordered, "Carter, get his laptop. We're checking it here." Carter nodded, heading upstairs as Ethan stood frozen, face pale. Ellie turned to Karoline, voice trembling. "How dare you? You dragged my son into this!" Karoline replied, calm but cutting. "You called the cops on me, Ellie. I just wanted the truth, and it led here." Ellie stepped back, speechless. The air in Ellie Whitaker's living room hung heavy as lead. Officer Carter placed Ethan's laptop on the table, its screen lighting up with hundreds of video files, undeniable proof of the neighborhood surveillance network. Ellie stood near the door, hand over her mouth, eyes red, muttering, "Ethan, no." Karoline Leavitt crossed her arms, her cold gaze shifting from Ellie to Ethan, who kept his head down, hands balled into fists. Detective Navarro stepped forward, his voice low but sharp. "Ethan Whitaker, how do you explain this?" Ethan didn't look up, his shoulders trembling slightly. I don't know where that stuff came from," he stammered, voice faint. Ellie rushed forward, grabbing his shoulders. "Ethan, talk to me. You didn't do this, right? Say it." But Ethan just turned his face away, silent. Carter clicked a file open. Footage from Karoline's living room, capturing her playing with her son that morning. "You don't know?" Carter asked, tone skeptical. "So this just appeared on its own. And it's... Karoline stepped closer, her eyes locked on Ethan. You watched my cameras, Ethan. You saw my son, my family. You think this is a game? Ethan looked up for the first time, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. I wasn't targeting you, he said, voice hoarse. It was just an experiment at first. Navarro tilted his head. An experiment? Hacking the neighborhood's network is an experiment? Ethan took a deep breath, hands shaking. I studied tech at school. I wanted to see if I could hack Wi-Fi, just to test it. I set up a fake network, Plasto I-01, to see who'd connect. Then I found the cameras. Then, Ellie stepped back, hand on her chest. Ethan, what are you saying? Her voice broke. Ethan glanced at his mom, then looked away. I didn't mean to do anything bad. I was just curious. Karoline let out a dry laugh, her voice icy. Curious? You recorded hundreds of hours of footage from my house, her house, the neighbors, and you call all that curious? You think I'd buy that? Carter opened another folder. Dozens more files popped up, from the Jenkins bedroom to the Miller's backyard. Curiosity doesn't explain this, she said, tone firm. What's your motive, Ethan? Ethan bit his lip, eyes darting as if seeking an escape. Navarro leaned closer, hand on the table. You've got one chance to tell the truth before we take you to the station. Speak. Ethan stayed silent for a moment, then sighed, shoulders slumping. Okay. It wasn't just an experiment, he said, voice fading. After I hacked the network, I saw her cameras. He pointed at Karoline. I knew who she was. Trump's press secretary. I hated her MAGA crowd. Karoline frowned but didn't interrupt. Ethan went on, his voice speeding up. I grew up hearing Mom talk about how Trump and people like her ruined the country. I thought if I could get something on her, footage, info, I could post it online, show everyone who she really is. Ellie cried out, Ethan, stop! You can't say that! But Ethan shook his head, eyes tearing up. You always said they were the bad guys. I just wanted to prove it. Navarro exchanged a glance with Carter, then turned back to Ethan. So you targeted Miss Leavitt over politics. What about the other houses? Ethan shrugged. I didn't care about them. I just kept the footage, too, to see if there was anything useful. But with her, he glanced at Karoline. I wanted more. I've got an anonymous blog on X, was going to post it all there. Karoline stepped forward, her voice low, but sharp. You were going to expose me? Use my home cameras to smear me? You know that's a crime, right? Ethan looked at her, his eyes a mix of anger and helplessness. You work for Trump. You don't get to talk about right and wrong. Karoline tilted her head, her gaze unwavering. I protect this country every day. And you violated a whole neighborhood over personal hate. Ellie collapsed into a chair, hands covering her face. Ethan, why would you do this? I didn't raise you like that. Ethan turned to his mom, his voice breaking. You always said they were a threat. You told me to fight back. I just did it my way. Ellie shook her head, tears falling. No, not like this. Carter dug deeper into the laptop, finding Ethan's anonymous blog, Truth Seeker NH. A draft post popped up, titled, MAGA Press Secretary Dark Secrets at Home. The content included footage from Karoline's house, captioned, This is the real face of Trump's crew. Carter turned the screen to Navarro. He was serious about going public, she said. Navarro nodded, his voice stern. Ethan Whitaker, you're under arrest for computer intrusion and illegal surveillance. Stand up. Ethan didn't resist, rising slowly, eyes downcast. Carter pulled handcuffs from her belt, securing his wrists. Ellie lunged forward, grabbing Navarro's arm. No, please, he's just a kid. He didn't mean it. But Navarro gently pushed her back. Miss Whitaker, he broke the law. We can't let it slide. Ellie turned to Karoline, her voice pleading. Please say something. You could let him off. You've got the power. Karoline looked at Ellie, her expression unflinching. Let him off? You called the cops on me, accused me with no proof. Now he's violated my family, the whole neighborhood, because he hates me. What do you think I'll do? Ellie crumpled to the floor, sobbing. I didn't know he'd do this. Ethan looked up at Karoline, one last time. You win, he said, voice hoarse, but I don't regret hating you. Karoline replied, her tone frigid. You don't need to regret it. You'll pay for it in jail. Carter led Ethan to the patrol car, the clink of handcuffs echoing in the quiet space. Navarro turned to Karoline. "You okay?" he asked. Karoline nodded, though her hands stayed clenched. "I'm fine, but I need to know how far he got and who's behind him, if anyone." Navarro frowned. "What do you mean?" Karoline glanced at the door as Ethan was loaded into the car. "He's a student, not a tech genius. Someone could have taught him or used him." Ellie lifted her head from the floor, tears streaking her face.
What are you saying? My son wasn't manipulated.
Karoline turned back, her gaze sharp.
You sure, Ellie? You raised him on bias. Now he's this.
Who knows if someone else was pulling strings? Ellie didn't answer, just clutched her face and cried. Karoline Leavitt stood on Ellie Whitaker's porch, watching the patrol car carrying Ethan disappear into the fading Plasto Heights sunset. The siren faded, leaving a heavy silence on the small street. Inside, Ellie knelt on the floor, her sobs echoing through the open door. Detective Navarro and Officer Carter stepped out, Navarro nodding to Karoline. "We'll dig deeper. You should go rest," he said, his voice low but tinged with fatigue. Karoline nodded, but her eyes remained cold. "Thank you both," she replied, then walked back to her house, her steps steady on the sidewalk. As she pushed the door open, Ryan stood waiting, their son in his arms. "It's over?" he asked, voice anxious. Karoline sighed, setting the laptop on the table. "Over with him." Ethan, Ellie's son, was behind it all. He hacked the neighborhood network, targeted me because he hates Trump. Ryan frowned, holding their son tighter. "Over politics? That kid's nuts." Karoline sank onto the sofa, rubbing her forehead. "Not just nuts. He had a plan. Wanted to post our home footage online to smear me. Ellie fed him bias, and this is the result." Ryan sat their son in the high chair, stepping to her side. "You okay? This is beyond imagination." Karoline looked up, her gaze resolute. "I'm fine, but I'm not letting it end here." She grabbed her phone, texting Mike Dawson quickly. "Ethan's arrested. Might be someone behind him. Check for me." The message sent, and instantly, her phone buzzed. Not Mike, but a number from the Trump team. She frowned, answering. "Karoline, it's John," came the voice of a close Trump aide. "We heard about New Hampshire. You good?" Karoline replied, "Good, but it might not just be the kid. I suspect someone bigger." John paused for a second. "We'll look into it. Stay safe, and the press is coming. Handle it carefully." She hung up, just as car engines hummed outside. Through the window, she saw local reporters gathering, cameras and mics at the ready. "They're fast," Ryan muttered. Karoline stood, smoothing her hair. "I'll deal with them. It's my job." Ryan grabbed her hand. "You don't have to do it alone." She gave a small smile. "I know, but I need them to hear it from me." She stepped into the yard, flashes popping as the crowd buzzed. "Miss Leavitt, what happened with the surveillance?" one shouted. Karoline raised a hand, her voice calm but commanding. The White House press secretary demeanor. "Today, a neighbor falsely accused me of wrongdoing for changing my Wi-Fi password. But the truth is, her son, Ethan Whitaker, hacked the neighborhood network, accessing my security cameras and others. He's been arrested, and police are investigating." A reporter cut in. "What's the motive, ma'am?" Karoline looked straight at the camera. "Political hatred. He targeted me because I work for President Trump, planning to use footage to smear me. But I'm not the only victim. The whole neighborhood was breached. This is a warning. Cybersecurity isn't a game, and political division doesn't justify crime." She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd. I call on everyone, conservative or liberal, to unite. Don't let bias turn us into enemies. I forgive mistakes, but I won't tolerate sabotage." Murmurs rose, a few nodding. Another reporter asked, "Are you afraid of being targeted again?" Karoline's lip twitched.
"I work for the president. Every day I'm not afraid. I'm prepared."
She turned back inside, leaving the crowd buzzing. Ryan hugged her from behind. "You were great," he whispered. Karoline nodded, but her eyes were distant. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mike. "Checked Ethan's blog, traces of contact with an anti-MAGA group online, digging deeper." She gripped the phone, muttering, "I knew it, it's not over." Meanwhile, Ellie sat in her house, her blank stare fixed on the floor. She heard the reporters outside but didn't dare step out. Her crying had stopped, replaced by suffocating silence. She remembered telling Ethan about the MAGA threat, how Trump and people like Karoline ruined the country. She never thought her words would turn her son into a criminal. "I was wrong," she whispered, hands trembling. She stood, shuffling to Karoline's house, knocking weakly. Ryan opened the door, frowning. "What do you want?" Ellie bowed her head, voice hoarse. I want to apologize to Karoline." Ryan called her and Karoline stepped out, eyes cold. "What is it, Ellie?" she asked. Ellie faltered. I was wrong. I didn't know Ethan would do this. I shouldn't have called the cops. I'm sorry." Karoline looked at her, unmoved. "You don't need to apologize to me. You called the cops out of bias, and he acted on the hate you taught. I don't forgive that. I just want you to think before you do anything else." Ellie bowed her head, tears falling. I don't know what to do." Karoline replied, "Start by teaching your son right from wrong, if you still have the chance." Ellie stepped back, returning home in silence. Karoline closed the door, turning to Ryan. "She's not the big problem. If Ethan had accomplices, this isn't over." Ryan took her hand. "What'll you do?" Karoline's lip curled. "Keep fighting, like always." Karoline Leavitt stood in her living room, gazing out at the now quiet Plasto Heights street. After the storm, Ethan Whitaker was arrested for hacking the neighborhood network, targeting her purely out of political hatred. Ellie, who started it all with a biased 911 call, now cowered in her home, facing the consequences of her own son. But for Karoline, it wasn't just a win or loss. It was a warning. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mike Dawson flashing. "Traces of an anti-MAGA group, not done yet." She clenched her fist, knowing this battle was just the beginning. It all started with something simple: Karoline changing her Wi-Fi password to protect her family. But Ellie, blinded by her hatred of MAGA, turned it into a nightmare. The truth didn't come from her, but from her own house. Ethan, who surveilled the neighborhood over warped ideals. The fallout was clear. Ethan in jail, Ellie losing everything, and Karoline standing tall, ready for the next challenge. Thus, we see how bias can kill reason. Ellie judged Karoline without evidence, pushed her son down a wrong path, and hurt herself. Truth doesn't care what you believe. It waits to be uncovered. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't let hate guide you. Observe, listen, and investigate, like Karoline did. The story of Karoline Leavitt and Ellie Whitaker deeply reflects the political polarization and social media culture dividing America in 2025. Karoline, a conservative working for Trump, was baselessly accused by Ellie, a liberal activist, over changing her Wi-Fi password. Ellie's suspicion wasn't based on proof, but stemmed from political bias, associating Karoline with MAGA surveillance. This mirrors how Americans today often judge each other through a partisan lens, Republican or Democrat, without seeking facts. Ethan, Ellie's son, escalated the conflict by hacking the neighborhood to smear Karoline, reflecting the keyboard warrior trend on X and forums, where political hate turns into extreme action. Ellie's collapse from confidence to despair upon learning her son was the culprit shows the cost of fostering bias at home, a real issue as younger generations absorb their parents' extreme views. The Plasto Heights incident is a cautionary tale, urging us to reject the seductive allure of political tribalism and embrace empathy, critical thinking, and responsible online behavior. It's a call to build bridges, not walls, and to remember that our shared humanity transcends political divides. What are your thoughts on the Plasto Heights incident? How can we combat political polarization and promote responsible online behavior? Share your ideas in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking stories and discussions.